a lot of people are scared of AI or resistant, and I usually say really three reasons. Number one, they base it on assumptions and misinformation. The second reason, of course, is fear. They actually think that AI is going to be like Terminator 2. And I say, it's possibly R2D2 in Star Wars. It points you where to shoot and it guides you. And I think number three is also denial. Denial that the world is changing. The future of AI is we need to be prepared for it. Our work is going to change. It's not AI that's going to take away the radiologist's job. It's the radiologist that uses AI that takes away the radiologist's job. We're still humans. We still have emotions. And we are that bridge between our patients. And even though there's AI, ultimately it's a nurse that holds the patient's hands when they're sick or dying. It's a doctor that gives a hug. So we are human healers. So it's not the end of our profession. This is just the next step in us evolving as human healers.
Good morning, Ram. Welcome to the podcast. I was thinking how to introduce you today, and I found an excellent summary on your LinkedIn profile where you say about yourself that you are a doctor, medpreneur, superconnector, mentor, and volunteer. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and briefly describe all these roles?
Good morning, Victor. Actually, interestingly, you said that. Just a few days ago, I spoke to one of my mentors who's not in the healthcare space. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I've actually changed it to going plural. And that was a term coined in 2000. And it's for people who sort of diversified what they do. So as you can see from my LinkedIn profile, my baseline is I'm a doctor. I work in the NHS and also do a bit of private practice. And I'm really proud of what I do within the NHS. Outside, and of course, within healthcare, I speak quite a bit internationally and locally, and I chair conferences in the UK. The two notable conference groups I chair for is for Convensis and the International Imaging Congress. And just a few days ago, last week, I was chairing the Fujifilm Healthcare Forum. Coming to Fujifilm, I'm also the National Clinical Director for Fujifilm Healthcare UK, and I advise them on their national clinical strategy. In the medtech space, I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Trusted.ai, which is a US-based company that deals with well-being, and we're doing remarkably well in India and Malaysia with several projects. I advise some AI companies, and I've recently formed a recruitment company based in London that is completely out of the medical space, where we upskill and recruit candidates from emerging economies and provide them with remote jobs in the UK for roles that we can't fill in the UK. So that's been just a journey I've taken in the last 3 years. When you talk about Superconnector, in the last 3 years, I have dedicated my time to creating a meticulous and trusted network with people that I can, proud to work with anytime. And that gives me opportunities to connect people when required. And I've done some volunteer work. I've taken 2 teams to Laos to support a hospital there. And throughout my time, I do a lot of volunteer work and charitable work, which I don't really publicize on LinkedIn, so you don't really see it. But that's just a bit about me, Victor.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of various roles, different hats, and I hope we'll touch on each of them. So let's start from the most obvious ones. You're a doctor. You're a radiologist.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to pursue the career in medicine, and then why did you choose to be a radiologist, and then specifically, pediatric radiologist?
Well, I'd love to say that I chose to become a doctor because I wanted to help people and it was a noble profession. While that is true, the main driver for me being a doctor is I come from Malaysia. I've been in the UK for 21 years. My father was a surgeon. And in those generations, in those times, you do what your parents did and what your parents told you to do. It might be something that is alien to those living in the UK, but that was how we rolled in the Far East. So it was my father really that inspired me to become a doctor. And he, of course, was hoping for me to be a surgeon. I found myself in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, where I did my medical school. And one of the reasons was it was registered with the GMC, so I was able to come straight to the UK. Ended up in the UK in Norfolk and Norwich. And my aim was really to go into surgery, but I just found that radiology was what really excited me within the world of radiology. And whenever people say, what is radiology? I say in its simplest form, it's CSI Miami meets Where's Wally or Where's Waldo. You're kind of looking for a problem amongst all this mess and then trying to piece things together. And I kind of like that because I realized also I was slightly neurodivergent and radiology was ideal for me. And that's how I found myself in radiology. I ended up doing my training in Sheffield and did my fellowship in Alberta Children's Hospital in Canada, which is currently ranked 6th best children's hospital in the world. And that's how I see myself. I found myself doing radiology now. And to be honest, I'm thankful to my father. It's opened up a lot of doors for me. It became my stepping stone or my foundation to then pursue my other interests in life. So thank you, Papa, for forcing me to become a doctor. And I'm actually now grateful.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I have pretty similar stories. So my father was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. So I understand where you're coming from when you had this, like, there was this expectation always that you're gonna be a doctor. And how was your journey, into UK and NHS? It's a bit different country, different cultures. I assume it wasn't like plain sailing with any particular difficulties that you encountered, or maybe you were the lucky one and then everything was pretty easy.
I think I was one of the lucky ones. And the reason came down to my foundation as a child. My father sent me to a British boarding school in Malaysia. And that gave me an insight into the nuances of how things were done in the UK. And my father himself was an Anglophile. He did his fellowship in the UK. So my school laid the foundation, College Tuanku Jaffa in Malaysia. And half my teaching staff were from the UK. And a lot of my friends were from the UK, but from all around the world. It gave me an insight into how people communicated with each other differently. But even coming from the Caribbean, yes, there were some challenges coming into the UK and settling in. One of the key differentiations was how we worked as teams in the UK compared to countries like Malaysia or the Caribbean, where doctors were always seen as the final say in everything and were treated in a godlike way. The thing I liked of the UK that allowed me to settle in was we have a flat in the hierarchy. Every team member is important. The nurse and everyone. So I always call everyone a healthcare professional within the hospital, from porters all the way up to the CEO. The second thing that also helped me, of course, was my darling wife. We met in med school, so we are college sweethearts. She's a GP, but she was born and brought up in the UK. And she also was supportive in me assimilating. But I still think there's still a way to go. And the thing I like about the UK is you can still retain your own characteristics while still being, in a sense, British. So the UK is a country that allows you to straddle both sides or all sides of your own personality while still being part of the country.
Within NHS, you also kind of managed to carve your own way of working. So for many doctors, I mean, for a majority of doctors in NHS, there's one kind of scheme. So you work full time, you do your training, you're a consultant, and so on, and that's it. But you managed to get some flexibility with NHS to allow you to work in your way.
An interesting question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, I do have a very novel way of working. So I work at Hull University Teaching Hospital. So it's a fantastic hospital with great forward-thinking leadership. And I mean it when I say that, because how the conversation started, basically, I think it came down to me building value and brand in myself. And this was not just only within the NHS, but outside the NHS. So I made a name for myself where I was someone who could solve problems. And so when I was having a conversation with the leadership team at Hull, it came down to, what do you want to achieve, or what do we want to achieve together? And with that, we realized that you can achieve it and get success without falling to traditional 9 to 5, 5 days a week working. Now, in the post-COVID world, we've realized that you can still achieve your targets and what you're hoping for in your hospital or in your group without following traditional routes of working. And what they wanted to achieve, of course, was set up a pediatric on-call. And when I joined, it was 0% on-call for pediatric radiology. I'm proud to say we'll be, up till May, we'll be doing 100% pediatric radiology on-call, which is unheard of in a trust or in a hospital to be done in less than a year. But I had to show value, they had to show value. And with that, we were able to craft out a job plan that kept myself happy, my family, my department happy, my clinicians happy, but ultimately we were able to provide excellence in patient care and keeping our clinicians happy. So my work is I spend 1 week a month on site. I stay in hospital, but the rest of the month I pretty much only go in physically 1 day a week on a Friday. On a Thursday, I do some flexible SPA, and I'm on an 8.5% job plan. So I think the lessons are you kind of need to firstly know what your value is when you walk into a trust, build your value, build your brand, and break it down to the fundamentals of what do you want to achieve personally, what the department needs to achieve personally, what is best for your clinicians, but ultimately what is best for your patients. And if you break it down and answer each separately, you'd be very surprised on the kind of job plan and flexibility you can build in, providing that, everyone is happy. Hopefully that answers your question on that.
Yeah. So this is interesting one because I think your NHS trust is not a typical one. I think the culture which in NHS is not really that forthcoming and with this flexibility and kind of trying to accommodate others people. But I'm glad to hear that they are more flexible in this thinking, because I think that's the future of NHS. The NHS needs to be less rigid and start to accepting that people can work in different ways. There's no one scheme for everyone. What do you think about that?
Well, I wouldn't be highly critical of the NHS. The NHS is a very, very large organization. And it's one of the largest employers in Europe. And it's got a fundamental role and aim to provide care from cradle to grave in the UK. To achieve that, they have to have certain things. It's multiple cogs in this wheel to get them from point A to point Z. So this is something they've been doing for a while, and you've got so many moving parts. And so I wouldn't be highly critical because that's what they've always known. What I've learned by leaving, or not leaving, but also stepping out into the corporate world and working outside the NHS is there are always multiple ways of solving problems. So one of the advantages I found from working in the corporate world and also then bringing those lessons back to the NHS is the importance of having a conversation and, sitting down with leadership and say, hey, look, what are our problems? What are we trying to achieve here? What are we trying to solve? And let's have a sensible conversation. And you'd be surprised when you do have those conversations. Some people will be like, why didn't we think of that? So I think it's just that it's just the way it's always been done. But I wouldn't be highly critical of the NHS. It's got a very difficult job, especially in a post-COVID world. But if people such as myself can inspire others to have a conversation, I think that's a starting point. But like I say, break it down to the key fundamentals on what are the priorities. Now we can achieve it as a team. And I think that's really important when we're talking about burnout. We're talking about staff retention, people leaving the NHS. I, for one, am staying in the NHS. I absolutely love it. But it's because I found a way to make it work for me. So I think we can apply that.
In terms of your future in NHS in years to come, do you see yourself, I like, the way you presented this vision for NHS, do you see yourself going a bit away from direct care, clinical care, into more those NHS, within NHS, those leadership roles?
The complete opposite, actually. I see myself being in the NHS long term. What I've realized is I absolutely love patient care. I'm a pediatric radiologist, but I also love management and leadership roles. And now, if I'm going to be critical with the NHS, it's easier and faster for me to assume leadership roles and roles in innovation outside the NHS. That doesn't mean I don't want to make change to the NHS. There are people I can work with in the NHS to have that change. So I see myself being in the NHS long term, but my ultimate aim in the NHS, when I take on other roles outside and have a more diversified career or going plural, is actually more time for patients and more time for education. To put it bluntly, I don't have time at this point in time for NHS politics and the rat race. There are other people who enjoy it, and I will let them do that. For me, it's me and my patients. If I want to do anything leadership or anything that's groundbreaking, I've got outlets, which is my diversified portfolio. And I, of course, bring it back to the NHS, but I don't have to be a leader within the NHS in that front.
Yeah, so we're touching here about one of your roles as Medpreneur.
Yeah.
Where this interest in health tech and medical innovation comes from, and what roles are you having now?
So Medpreneur is just sort of an overarching thing of what I do, but I suppose my main role is as a clinical strategist. I kind of just fell into it by accident over COVID and realized that there was a need in the market for people such as myself with unique skills to be clinical strategists. Now, interestingly, a few weeks ago, I was at the Nordic Propel program in Leeds, where I worked alongside the Yorkshire Humber Innovation, Yorkshire Humber Healthcare Innovation. It used to be known as HSN, the Academic Health and Science Network. And I gave a presentation on the differences between clinical advisors and clinical strategists. And both have some gray areas between them in terms of the roles of a clinician, but both of them also do very unique roles. My role is as a clinical strategist, which is help companies define a business strategy, help them shake hands, show them the landscape, as opposed to the inward role of a clinical advisor. But there are some clinical advisors who also do clinical strategy. By doing so, I found myself, some companies in a startup phase and some companies are in a scale-up phase. So funding and money is usually an issue. So if I believe in a company and I think there's value for me to put my time in, then I have some skin in the game. And so I get what we call sweat equity, where there's an agreement for me to support the growth. And so that puts me as a value add investor, where when I go into a company through sweat, I add value to their growth. I open them up to my network. I will create a pathway for them. And one of the successes has been Trusted.ai, which is a US-based company. Long story short, around 2022, I was approached by a company that had a well-being app. I liked it. I saw it had a lot of opportunity. It just so happens around the same week, I met another American in a hotel in a sauna. That's how we met. Gone were the days of meeting people in a golf. And we'll talk about it but we met in a sauna. We started talking. It so happens he was a medtech investor. Few months down the line, we led to a merger of both companies, became a C Corp in the US, and I have equity in that company. And my role is as a clinical strategist. And so we now have 2 projects in India and 2 funded projects in Malaysia with the Ministry of Transport providers, and also with as we are partners with Microsoft, we have a program at Microsoft. So that's how I got myself into MedTech, mostly as a strategic a clinical strategist, and through that, value-add investments. And that's an interesting way that people can add value to companies as a clinical advisor, as a clinical strategist. Hopefully,
yeah, this is interesting. The company that you mentioned, Trusted.ai, obviously is using some AI, and AI is hot topic now.
Mm-hmm.
how do you see future of medicine and this implementation of AI? How the provision of medicine is going to change over the next couple of years because of AI?
Good question. Everyone's talking about AI. So I think you look at AI, you have to look at it as a tool, as a technology. The same way we've had computers and microchips, and the same way we've had the Industrial Revolution, and beyond that, the discovery of fire and wheels. It's just a tool. It's just the next step. But of course, it's a very powerful tool. And I was speaking to a friend a few days ago. This is a once in a generation event. And they actually said, no, this is actually a once in a humankind event. The next stage in AI. A lot of people are scared of AI or resistant. And I usually say really three reasons. Number one, they're actually not done the reading up of AI. So they base it on assumptions and misinformation. So, oh, I don't like AI. Well, have you read about it? Have you seen it in action? No. Well, go back and read. The second reason, of course, is fear. They actually think that AI is going to be like Terminator 2. And I say, it's possibly R2-D2 in Star Wars. It points you where to shoot and it guides you. And I think number three is also denial. Denial that the world is changing. And we see the same in radiology. You know, when they introduced voice recognition for dictation, everyone was up in arms. Nobody liked the idea. Secretaries were crying because they're going to lose their job. Clinicians were like, hey, how is this going to detect my voice? Now everyone's using it. The future of AI is we need to be prepared for it. Our work is going to change. And I think we're just so comfortable with the way we do things that we don't. Human beings fundamentally don't like change. I don't like change. I like my Monday starting off at a gym, relaxing. When there's something different, I don't like it. So that's with any human being. So I think if you look at the airline industry, any industry, there's always been automation, there's always been technology. It's how we work with technology. So in the field of radiology, everyone says this now, it's not AI that's going to take away the radiologist's job. It's the radiologist that uses AI that takes away the radiologist's job. So there is still a lot to learn about AI. We need to understand its impact. We need to understand its role. What I encourage people is you've got to be part of the conversation. You can either sit on the side and complain about it, or you can be part of the conversation. And if you have a problem, well, we can do two things. We can try to find a solution for the problem, or you can do the research to prove yourself and be the person that, proved that AI didn't work. But the ship is sailing, and I'd encourage everyone, get on that ship and have those conversations and either help us find the solutions or prove that AI is not going to work. But whatever it is, be part of that conversation. If you're not part of the conversation when there's policy making and there's decision making, you're not going to be part of that conversation. And we need loyal oppositions to AI, and we need proponents to AI to have this conversation. We need a balanced discussion. So that's my view on AI.
Yeah, I agree with you that as clinicians, we really need to be part of this conversation, and then the sooner everyone starts, engaging, the better. I was thinking about that recently, from point of view of AI as a tool, and I think I'm looking at it like it's CT scanner. So I don't need to understand exactly how CT scanner is built to use it safely, but I need to understand, risks of using this tool and how to use it effectively and so on. So I think the speed of this implementation acceleration is very well seen in radiology, but other specialties are starting to catch up. So
absolutely. I think how I define as clinicians these days, what is our role in the future? And I think we are still human healers. It's, again, using a tool. And I think it's got to be part of our learning process now about AI, the risk, the benefits, and how do we use it safely and how do we interpret it? Same as looking at research. So we're still human healers. And I'll give you a great story I had the other day. These are for people who are scared of AI. I was doing an ultrasound list with my registrars, but we had a 3-month-old child coming in. Sorry, 1-month-old child for the first screening to look for cancer. The child had Becker-Wiedemann syndrome, so they're high risk of getting cancer. The kid parents were notably very, very stressed out and very, very scared. We did the scan, and I told them, I cannot see anything, but of course your child will be part of a routine follow-up. And I left the room, and the parents were really happy to allow my registrar to continue the list. As the parents were walking out the room, they saw me, and the father was very, very emotional. I think they were bottling up all this worry and stress. And he came up to me and said, thank you so much for doing that scan and letting us know that it was okay. And I said, that's my role. And, whatever you do, don't go and Google anything. Don't go and read Daily Mail. Listen to your doctors. You're in the right place. And the father was really, really stressed out. And I noticed that. And then I said, look, and he says, thank you. And I said, do you need a hug? And the father went, oh, yes, thank you. The father gave me a hug. Yeah. And so I say, AI can't hug. Well, at this point in time, AI can hug. We're still humans. We still have emotions. And we are that bridge between our patients. And even though there's AI, ultimately, it's a nurse that holds a patient's hands when they're sick or dying. It's a doctor that gives a hug. The doctor that, look at our face, how many muscles do we have in our face when we smile? A human being can recognize that. And we still have our face with all our muscles to bring comfort. So we are human healers. So it's not the end of our profession. It's just us evolving as we always have done throughout history. Human beings have always evolved in the way we treat patients. This is just the next step in us evolving as human healers, I would say.
Yes, so I can easily imagine various things that AI can do and help us as doctors, clinicians, as such. But you can't underestimate, this power of human touch and human connection.
And smile.
So one of the kind of roles that you took is being a superconnector. Could you elaborate a bit about, how is it, how connecting other people is meaningfully for you? How are you doing it?
Okay. It's in so how I came about that. I wrote an article the other day about never say no to the first telephone call. Never say no to the first reach out. And so whenever somebody, and Victor, you and I are the same exact thing. I think you reached out to me or I reached out to you, but both of us, and look at us now. We're in a podcast. So I've always never said no to people, regardless of what their background is, what the specialty are, or what industry they are. I've got connections in military intelligence and on the other side in interior design. And it comes down to a lesson I learned from my mother. It really came down. My wife and I got married 20 years ago. This is going to be our 20th anniversary this year. And we got married in the UK, and my parents wanted to have a big celebration in Malaysia. That's how it's always done. So we went, and traditionally, I won't say traditionally, but usually my father's a surgeon. It'd usually be in a 5-star hotel, maybe 12 tables with VIPs. And I went, and my mom, she got a school hall with 1,200 people, and she said no gifts and no dress code. So people were coming in with their best shirts, with slippers and sandals and all sorts. Everyone just came comfortable. It wasn't a VIP wedding that I was accustomed to and I was used to. And I was really young then. So I went and asked my mom, why would we be having a dinner at a 5-star hotel? And she says, we are where we are today because of all the people we've met throughout our life. We are the product of all the people we meet. And this could be good people, it could be bad people. It could be people that strengthen us through knowledge. It could be people who strengthen us through lessons learned because we were hurt. And that really struck a chord in me. And that really stuck in my mind that we are a product of everyone we meet and experience throughout our life. So I did it on a selfish way of I loved connecting with people because every time somebody new comes to my network, I'm learning something new. And I also love to introduce people to each other. So that just allowed me to have an immense network, a great network. I always say immense, but a great network. And we all wanted to do the same thing. So if something was directly in line for my business, that's great. If it's not, I'm more than happy to connect people with other like-minded individuals. And usually opportunities may not appear today, but it might be down 3 or 4 months to line. And a lot of my projects I'm doing now were because of relationships I established a few years ago or a few months ago. So I think the most important thing is just don't say no to the first phone call. And just remember, we are all a product of all the relationships we experience. So every time there's a new person that can come into a network, it's just an opportunity to grow. That's my philosophical view on it, to be honest.
I can relate to that. I mean, I'm learning that because, for many years as a doctor, I kind of neglected this approach. So when you're like in this tunnel vision of medicine, you don't see things on the outside. And I think it's important because it's like, it's opening so many opportunities, and then indeed you're learning so much from other people. And I actually, on purpose, I'm looking for things outside the medicine, because I think, these are the things that I want to explore and learn more. So for doctors trying to kind of build the network, or whatever you say, like networking, but what is your approach? What would be your, tips that you would suggest how to start building your network, how to approach other people, how to make those connections?
Okay, so the few things, I'll break it down. I think the first thing is what I do on a day-to-day basis. I think if you're looking at never say no to the first phone call and realizing the opportunity for growth and going beyond your borders, I think for me, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool in the professional world, and Twitter, but I like LinkedIn quite a lot, and I'd recommend LinkedIn. And it's never too early to start LinkedIn. And this goes as far as the medical students and junior doctors. Get in early. I spend 30 to 45 minutes a day on LinkedIn doing 3 key things. Number one, I'm always expanding my network, either accepting new contacts regardless of what their background is or what they do, or me expanding my network. And with that, my network is not just healthcare physicians, but it's techpreneurs and people in finance outside. And the second thing I do is learn from LinkedIn, which is either from all the bite-sized information that keeps you up to date on what's happening. So it's every day's updated information, and also learning from the network that I've developed. What is that person doing there? Oh, I didn't realize this was happening in that industry. How would that relate to my industry? And the third thing I'll tell people is to be a trusted and reliable source of information, so that, and Victor, you've been doing a fantastic job doing that. You've started doing some really great posts, but what you've become is a trusted and reliable source of information. When you do those 3 things, your network will organically grow, because firstly, you're growing it with good people, people who might have similar interests, but people might have different interests. You're learning, but people are starting to also learn from you, and you become a trusted and reliable source of information. I think those are the most important things, I think, in terms of growing a network. Outside that, I think the way I handle myself, and I always say this to a lot of people, another key lesson is to be highly likable and highly reliable. I think people want to work with nice people, regardless. We look at industries, you look at people. So you want to be highly likable and enjoy speaking to people and learning from people, and being highly reliable. I think if somebody emails you or contacts you, you respond within a business day. I think you have to find time to make sure that your comms are up to scratch. Victor, when you messaged me about this call, I responded in time, and we got a time set up, and I'm reliable, and I'm here with you today. I didn't cancel it. That says a lot about someone's character and about discipline. The other thing is, like I say, just say yes to opportunities, and don't be afraid to fail. I think one of the biggest challenges is people are too hesitant, and I think it's not a personal thing. it's maybe it's a very British thing, I think, people are usually very humble and they question themselves more before they say yes. We're all smart people. There's always a way to find a way to work. A good example is I'm speaking at a glass industry event in April. This is a glass manufacturing company, and they approached me because they said, "Hey, we'd like you to talk a bit about AI and the future of healthcare," because they were interested in learning. I just said yes. Say yeah. I'm sure I'll be able to find something. That there's enough information out there, and yes, I will be talking to them about the role glass played from the advent of civilization with glass beakers to the discovery of uh, lenses and telescopes and learning about microorganisms to smart glasses to vials. So, straight away, with a bit of homework, there is something. So I think go out, shake hands, metaphorically and physically, and that's the best way to expand your network. And don't be afraid to say yes or to fail. Just go for it. I'm an extrovert, so it's very easy for me. And I know it can be challenging for introverts, but I think there's some great articles on how introverts do, and maybe one person at a time, and having meaningful relationships. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I am an introvert, and from that point of view, I'm always that person in the corner somewhere there, like, on the conference, everyone is chatting, just like a bit uncomfortable at times. But I found, LinkedIn is helpful in this respect, because there's less of this barrier through this electronic means. And another thing is, if you're not based in London, it also brings you people closer to you if you're somewhere away. So yeah, I would agree. LinkedIn is a great networking tool. But more interesting thing is for me is like you touched a couple of times about learning to fail. So as doctors, we pretty all are perfectionists, and I think we know this is a big problem for us to learn to fail. How do you see, this interaction between failure and success? What is your definition of success?
I think you can't be successful if you haven't learned to fail. And I'm going to tell you a conversation I have with people, and why learning to fail is really important. A lot of people come and ask me, "Oh, can you give me how do you do what you do? Can you give me a roadmap?" I'm like, "I can give you a roadmap, but you've also have to experience all my failures, all my crying. I've been to an MHPS investigation. Fortunately, I came out the other end untouched. Lessons learned, but it's most of the time miscommunication. But I'm going to declare that to my crowd. And a lot of doctors would have had those challenges. You have to go through my challenges. So I can't really write a roadmap per se. We all have our own experiences. And part of that learning point is failure. Why do we have to learn how to fail? Well, let's look at MotoGP, those really fast bikes going on in the circuit. Or even if you look at Ferrari, F1, the Ferrari team, Mercedes, and all those teams. Part of that success strategy is also learning how to crash and learning to crash well, or learning to fall well. So if your bike loses balance and crashes, the riders are taught how to stumble and fall to reduce the impact so they can stand up and race another day. If you look at the aviation industry, they're always taught how to fail, and they're always taught how to handle failure. So if there's equipment is failing around them, how do you handle that failure in that situation? So learning how to fail, we are all going to fail. We're all going to fall. It will happen. But how we do it is so they always say it's not how you fall, it's how you get up. Yes, but how you fall also is really important, which is, you can fall really, really hard, or you can have a controlled descent. And so part of success is accepting that failure happens. And when failure happens, learning how to control that failure, which is slowing down the rate of descent, getting as much support as you can on your way down, and grabbing as much information as you can on your way down. So you're trying to slow things down, grabbing as much as you can. So when you hit the ground, you're hitting the ground in an appropriate way so that you have everything you need on the ground to then get up. I think that's probably the sort of a way I can summarize it. I think you can write a book on how to fail, I think. But I think we need to learn how to fail. And we don't teach that enough in med school or in healthcare. We talk about discrepancies, but we're still a way away from that. But we need to tell people it's okay to fail, but it's just how you fail that's really important. How does that sound, Ricky? Does it make sense?
I think there is kind of change of mindset required. So for two reasons, like you said, we are not taught that. I'm sure everyone being perfectionist is not prepared to fail. And the third thing, being a clinician, failure, you always look at a failure as a potential harm to the patient, but you can learn to change this mindset, and I think it's important to kind of in the future self-development to go away from this mindset that you can't fail. So yeah, that all makes sense, and like you said, everyone is writing their own stories. So I'm always laughing because like people sometimes reach out to me and they keep on asking the same question: how do I get into health tech? And it's like, the question, like you answered, I can give you a roadmap. You essentially have to go out and try and fail. So this is really important, and I want to illustrate like how people still have this way of thinking.
Absolutely, and I think there's maybe some fundamental core skills that one can develop. I always say, is it medtech you really want to get into? Is it what I do you really want to get into? I always find your passion and make that work for you. I found myself in medtech, but it is not really medtech that drives me. It's the network and the people. That's what really drives me, and there isn't a roadmap. We all have to write our own books, but there's some basics that you can follow. And to me, it comes down to humility. Hence my hashtag, call me Ram. You don't have to be known as doctor if you really want to connect with people. I think humility is key. Realizing that you are a product of everyone that you meet in your life. So the more people you meet, the wider your network, the more likely you are to be successful in whatever venture you want to go into. Let's say medtech. Don't forget who cooks your food. That's one of the other things my mom's taught me, right? You just don't know who's going to be influential in your path to success. And that's where humility comes in. It might be that really basic programmer that nobody cares about who could end up being the CEO of a company one day, or who might give you the information you critically need. And I think the other part, it's okay to be number two. I think that's really, really important. And you talk about success, you talk about us achieving the peak. I believe that the minute you think you're number one, you need to immediately start looking for someone better than you and get them to be a guru. That was what happened with me in Sunderland. I was the pediatric radiologist. All the pediatricians were worshipping me. All the buck stopped with me. When I had an opportunity to go to Hull, I knew that there was a better person than me. I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning him, David Horton. He was the ex-president of the British Society of Paediatric Radiology. Fantastic mentor, fantastic clinician. I knew I'll be going in as number two, but I was comfortable with that. I was like, you know what? I don't mind being number two. I want to be number two. So we got to keep on looking for someone better than us if we want to be successful. I think, to me, those are probably some of the critical things if you want to be successful in whatever venture you do. I think humility and wanting to continuously learn, and that comes to widening a network and speaking to as many people as you can.
And I really like your approach of the call me Ram, because it kind of breaks down the barriers between people, and then it's like it's within this connecting people attitude. And you're talking a lot about other people in family, So we actually, you actually call yourself a superconnector, but we're on this call about thanks to other superconnector, your wife. She actually connected us. I think she's picking up some superconnecting from
Skills. Yeah.
you. Yeah. But other people and family are important in your life. How do you cherish this kind of family approach and other people in your life, most loved ones?
Oh, well, without a doubt, my family is very, very important to me. I was just speaking to my wife the other day. I was in the office working that day, and I heard laughter in the other room. My wife was laughing at the girls looking at photos from old times. And to me, that was probably one of the most powerful things to have in this day and age. I think laughter is a gift. When you talk about we talk about the cost of living crisis and some families struggling to feed the children. You're looking at some of the wars that's currently going on in Ukraine and in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. The ability to have laughter at home, I think, is something we shouldn't take for granted. Now, I'm going to say something that's really, really maybe controversial, but I don't agree or believe in work-life balance. Now, hear me out. When you say work-life balance, you're immediately implying that life is good, but work is something that we just have to do. And it means that there's got to be some sort of partition between those two. I would like to challenge you and your viewers to consider work-life optimization, which is, and it took me 3 to 5 years to get to this stage. But if you're going to get yourself to a journey where you've got the ideal work-life optimization optimized, in your work, you want to optimize it in a way where, number one, you enjoy your work and you work to a timetable that you are happy with, which is what we touched upon my job at Hull. Secondly, you do the jobs and work that you like. And at one point, I was purely NHS and a bit of teleradiology. Now, clinical work is 40 or 50% of what I do. The rest is non-clinical work or non-direct patient care work. It's consultancy. So I've learned to optimize the work that I do to make sure I'm happy. And of course, money is important. So to make sure that I make the money I want to make to provide a comfortable space for my children. So I've optimized my work to working when I want, how I want, and where I want. That then allows me to optimize my life. And optimizing my life at home is about making sure that the time I have is precious time. I don't take it for granted. So I make sure I go to the gym. I make sure I cook some lunch for the missus and I have lunch with her. We are focused. You can have work-life balance and all you're doing in life is just sitting at home and watching TV and eating crisps. Or you can use that life to go out and be healthy, work on relationships and be with people. So I think it's just a minor change to mindset of moving from work-life balance to work-life optimization. And you talked about success. I think if you want to be successful, then look at the people who are successful, and they will also tell you that they probably optimize their work life. And if you ask them to break down what they did to become successful, you will notice that they optimize their work and they optimize their life to achieve success. So that is my controversial thing for Dana says. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life optimization. And I'll ask people to review their mindset on work-life balance and consider work-life optimization.
That's very interesting. I like that you highlighted it because it kind of underlines where this word is coming from unhappiness at work, I think. So that's the thing that people need to look at, how to fix that, and from there this optimization will follow, I believe.
Absolutely. And sometimes you've got to make difficult decisions. You might have to leave a job that you thought was going to be a job for life. You might need to take a pay cut But in that journey, and I had to go through that journey of pain, of some suffering, success, some poverty. But if you realize that's what you want to achieve, those are the kind of steps, that roadmap that people ask me for. If you're willing to do that, you can then achieve that optimized work life. And where's that left me? My 6-year-old girl, our conversations around health, she wants to be my weight when I do exercise at home. She doesn't want to try and drink Ribena from a wine glass, because what she's seeing is positivity and exercise. And the other thing that a mentor once told me, which is really, really important, and to everyone, is your children must see you love their mother, or your children must see you love your husband. For a happy family, there's always going to be challenges in any family, from watching too much TV to leaving the underwear on the floor, or not paying bills, or financial. It's important to me that children see, if they have a family, of course, a mother and father. Of course, there's some that don't, and I understand that. But if there is two adults in the room that are going to be communicating, then children need to see that parents love each other. And I think that has a positive impact on their growth and development, and how they also deal with relationships as they grow up. So I think, and of course with my kids, I'm not the perfect father. I'm a Gen Z, I'm a Gen X father. And a Gen X father, we usually allow kids to learn the world by themselves. My role with my children is, that's the world. It's not fun, but I'm here. But I still try to find time, and I've managed to carve more time now than I had before. But don't compare yourself to other people. Millennial fathers spend 30% more time with their kids than compared to me. I can't compare. I came from a world with no internet. They came from a world with internet. But there's no rule book there. Do what you can. But I think work-life optimization, it comes down to that.
What strikes me is, how important your families, your loved ones, and so on. And on that sort of subject, I wanted to ask you about cooking, because cooking, I think is a tool that you use, to keep everyone happy and connected. So tell me a bit more about your cooking.
Oh, I love cooking. It probably came from my mom's side of the family, and I'm also Malaysian, and Malaysians, we love food. And when I went to the Caribbean, I couldn't get good food or Malaysian food, so I had to learn how to cook in the Caribbean. But that continued purely because my family, on my mother's side, are passionate about cooking. My sister runs a successful business in cooking, although I still think I'm the better cook at the family, my sister. Food is an interesting relationship with us, a very interesting relationship. It's a relationship that can help build us, nourish us, bring people together. That's why I like cooking. It's a powerful tool to level the playing field. And whenever I have business events, especially when it's first time with people, I like food that has family style, or sharing, or tapas. The act of serving a dish to a friend, hey, do you want a bit more bread or cheese? It's a powerful way to connect. So I like cooking because food has a fantastic way to bring people together, to allow people to connect. For me, I love the creativity. I don't play musical instruments. I wish I did. But food allows me to create, to bring things together, and to connect the dots and the timings and the volumes to create something. And in a sense, when I'm a medtech entrepreneur, a superconnector, I'm kind of cooking too at the same time. I'm looking at all the varieties of ingredients out there. And okay, how is this ingredient going to work with that ingredient to create this thing? So I bring in my lessons from cooking to when I connect people. So in a sense, I'm a chef in the medtech world, bringing that together. The other relationship with food, and I had a negative relationship, we talked about my exercising. 4 years ago, I was 10 kilograms overweight. I was not fit. I was not healthy. Food was a comfort. And I think just COVID, just like I just can't continue. I just can't do that. I got two girls I love. I want to see my grandkids. I want to be able to keep up with my children. Um, so I have a different relationship with food now. I still enjoy eating, but it's not what I eat, but it's also when I eat. So I do intermittent fasting, I exercise, but I don't use food as a source of comfort now. So I think food is fantastic, cooking is great, but we need to realign our relationship with food as a way to nourish and to bring people together, and not as a way to comfort us internally, because there are better things we can do to comfort us internally. And I think as doctors, I think we have, and I think you've seen a few of my postings, we have a fundamental duty to our society and the community to look after our health. And I'm going to say another controversial thing. You don't trust a skinny chef. You can't trust a fat doctor. I mean, think about it. An unhealthy doctor telling a patient to lose weight, or the doctor that smokes, where's the logic in that? And I think we can't tell people to have work-life balance or work-life optimization or to stop eating this if we're on the other side of the table not looking healthy. So I think we have to take the first step if we're looking at population health. That's one of the messages I want to give. And I still have a way to go. I still think I'm overweight, and I want to lose another 5 kilograms. And that last 5 kilograms it's really, really hard. So I'm finding my way to get down to that.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I have same approach to cooking. I mean, I'm not very skilled cook, but I have a couple of dishes that I can do properly, and I have more like pleasure in cooking rather than eating and sharing with others. Yes, this is really important. You know how we work as doctors as kind of role models. So exactly like you said. You won't trust skinny chef and fat doctor.
So I'm sorry if I've caused offense, but it's just, just to put it out in perspective, in context, I think, importance of health.
Hey, listen, Ram, it was really insightful and funny to speak to you today. How people can get in touch with you if they would like to find out a bit more about what you're doing in all those roles that you have?
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you at the bottom, the hashtag call me Ram, if you put that on Instagram or LinkedIn, it'll take you to me. Or you can find me on LinkedIn through yourself, Victor. I'm sure you can put it onto your podcast link.
Yeah.
Or you can email me on ram@drsenasi.com. So that's Romeo Alpha Mike at drsenasi, drsenasi.com. But hashtag call me Ram is probably the quickest way to find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. That's my brand. And reach out. And as I promise, I will never say no to the first call.
Great. I'll put all those links, hashtags, and so on to the podcasts. Listen, Ram, that was really, really great time today with you. Thanks for your time, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you very much, Victor. And looking forward to catching up with you in person again very soon. Take care.